So with Shea winning MVP, we have now gone 7 years without an American player winning MVP, and somebody has to stop this. We need a savior, and the problem is when you look at it, I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon because the same people that have been winning MVP, they aren't going anywhere, and I think Shea's actually the least likely to win it again. Not trying to diss Shea, but I'm just going to assume OKC's not going to be as dominant next year in comparison to everyone else, right? I think they could be just as good, but other teams might be closer in the standings, so that will nullify the advantage he had this year over someone like a Jokic, right? Because Shea's numbers are crazy, but they're not crazy to where you win MVP if you're not the 1 seed. And OKC will probably be the 1 seed, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like, Jokic was in MVP conversations this year while being a 5 seed or 4 seed. So yeah, I believe Shea will finish top 3 in MVP voting next year, but it's also harder to get the second one. You kind of got to do something different. And I don't see his numbers taking a leap, and they won 68 games, so it's not like the team success is going to take this huge leap. But of course, Shea is going to be in that conversation. Jokic is going to be in that conversation. But I think Giannis and Luka should be like 1 and 2 for next year in terms of MVP odds. If Giannis goes to a different team, that in itself is going to be a big storyline. And if he's going to continue to put up 30, 11, and 6, and he's going to be on a better team, and Giannis hasn't been, really relevant in the postseason for so long, I think people are going to be thirsty to award Giannis. Not saying it wouldn't be deserving, but I think that storyline and that narrative is going to hold a lot of weight depending on where he goes. And then obviously Luka, I believe, has been like the preseason favorite every year the last 3 or 4 years. Now he's in LA. If they are, a top 3 seed, he's going to be right there as well. So I don't really see an American player winning MVP next year over Shea, Luka, Giannis, and Jokic. Oh, and there's also that Victor Wembanyama guy who's pretty good. But who is going to be the next American player to win MVP? Now, we have 3 very, very good candidates right now in the conference finals, and Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson. And to reiterate, this is not really about next year, just the next one to win MVP in general. And of all those names, I actually believe that Tyrese Halliburton is the most likely, which is crazy to say, but I think one is because he's different, right? To win MVP, kind of got to stand out in a certain way, and his play style, that type of player, doesn't really exist in the NBA right now. Like, who's like Tyrese? There's not another quote-unquote pass-first guard out there right now. So that in itself, I think, will garner a lot of attention because there'll be like people that say that truly believe the way he plays basketball is the right way to play. There will be people that want to be different and vote for the guy that's not scoring as much. And Indiana might just be a dominant team in the upcoming years. When I look at, Minnesota and New York, I'm not as sure. New York just gave up all their assets for Cat and Mikal Bridges. They don't really have a lot of young talent on the team. Minnesota gave up all their assets for Rudy Gobert, and Rudy Gobert is getting older. Mike Conley is getting older, and we keep waiting for Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid to be like these 2 and 3 next to Ant. That's not something I would necessarily rely on. I know this isn't the conversation we're having, but just in terms of the outlook of this team, like, I think it's more likely that Indiana is top of the East in a couple years than New York or Minnesota being top of the West in a couple years. And remember, this is an MVP discussion, so that doesn't mean that Indiana will be the better playoff team, or, maybe they will. But I say that because even if, let's say, Ant is in Minnesota, right, and he puts up the exact same stat line that Shea put up this year, but he's the 6th seed, he's not going to be MVP, right? That's what I'm getting at. I don't see the Timberwolves being this dominant regular season team, especially as Gobert gets older. So while I kind of believe that Ant is going to be the best player of the 3 in a couple years, I don't see the future of Minnesota as bright as I see Indiana. And that might be my, my trepidation on Jaden McDaniels. Every time he seems like he's going to take that step, there's a couple games where you're like, man, I don't see this guy being, one of the core pieces of your team, even though he has been that this year. You guys get what I'm saying. I'm overdoing it. I'm over explaining. But to me, Tyrese Halliburton of those 3 is the most likely. But once we get outside of those 3, it is kind of slim picking. Well, you know what? We got 2 other ones, 2 former first overall picks in Paolo Banchero and Cade Cunningham. I think I would have Cade a little bit higher. just because of the assist number. But as great as Cade is, I want to see more from their other guys. Like, we don't really know what Jaden Ivey's gonna be, and a lot of their success this year had to do with Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris, and that's fine, right? I'm not saying they're gonna be a bad team, but you guys gotta remember, I'm talking about winning MVP. If you're gonna win MVP, you kinda gotta be on a great team, and I wanna see more from Ron Holland and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren to be penciling in Detroit for a top 4 seed the next couple years. I just wanna see more from those young guys. With Paolo, I want to see what direction this team goes in, because I kind of feel like for them to get better, Paolo should be doing less, and that doesn't make him less of a player. But when we're talking about MVP, obviously, we lean toward the guys that are doing more. So if they go get another scorer, if they go get another playmaker and his stats maybe go down a little bit, but he's more efficient, does that help or hurt him? If they go get a CJ McCollum and he puts up 17 points there, and Paolo's only, right, quote unquote, only averaging something like 25 points, but he's more efficient, I'm not sure how, voters would view that. But I do think there's a real chance that Orlando is a top 4 seed in the East next year and going forward. So you know what? I would put Paolo and Cade right there with Ant, Brunson, and Tyrese Halliburton. Other than those guys, I don't really know. I know people are going to say Cooper Flagg. I think Cooper Flagg's gonna be amazing. I don't think he's gonna be MVP in that way. Like, you kind of gotta be more of a, and he was a creator. He was a creator at Duke for sure, but I don't know if his shot creation is gonna be at an MVP level. You look at someone like Anthony Davis, right? I think he'll be a better playmaker than Anthony Davis, but look at how great Anthony Davis is, and nowhere near MVP talks. Now, some of that is injuries, but I think in order to win MVP in today's NBA, we kind of need you to be more of a playmaker in that way, unless you were like dominant defensively, which he might be. This is not a Cooper Flagg scouting video, so let's move on from Cooper Flagg. Other than that, Tatum obviously would have been the #1 answer before the Achilles injury. I think he should still be pretty high on the list. I know it doesn't seem like it right now. Trae Young, I could see a world where he goes somewhere in a different situation and is a part of like a very, very good team, and he's putting up 25 and 11 with better efficiency. I could see a world. I'm not betting on it. I'm just, like I said, it's slim pickings out here. But I think the guy that is actually maybe the one, maybe, and I've been very critical of this guy, but what about Zion? Again, narratives are very, very important when it comes to MVP voting, and Zion will have the narrative of being written off, whether it's with the Pelicans or somewhere else. I think a lot of people are done with the idea of hoping Zion's gonna be this all-time performer, even though he has shown that when he plays. I think Zion also has the narrative of being different. Like I said with Tyrese Halliburton, it helps when you're the only one in the NBA that plays like you and you are dominating. You have no choice but to stand out, and clearly no one else in the NBA plays like Zion. And I think in terms of stat lines, he could do a little bit more than someone like Ant. I think Zion, you might see average 6-7 assists. Of course, Zion barely played last year, which is the problem with Zion. When he did play, he didn't play that many minutes because he was coming back from injury and New Orleans was tanking. But just for reference in this conversation, last year per 36, only 30 games, and it's per 36, Zion's probably not going to play 36 minutes a game when he comes back. He averaged 31 points, 9 boards, nearly 7 assists. Let's take it down to 29 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. Could Zion do that for a full season? Absolutely. And could that be MVP worthy? I think so. And if he did that with some crazy highlights, with some crazy poster dunks, with some crazy blocks to keep his name in that conversation, and he's on a decent team, I think Zion could be a real MVP candidate here. If he does stay in New Orleans, I think there's a lot there. Trey Murphy had a breakout year. I really like Yves Missy. They got, the 7th pick this year? Not great. But there's a lot there. They got a lot of picks. They got Milwaukee picks. There's a lot they can do to build around Zion. But I think it's more likely if he gets traded to, I don't know where, but to wherever that might be. And of course, Zion not being able to stay healthy is why he wouldn't be first on my list. But if you were to guarantee me that, I think I would have Zion probably #1, maybe #2 behind Halliburton. And then I go Anthony Edwards, and then just Jalen Brunson. You know, if you told me the Knicks win the championship this year, then I would, bump Brunson up a lot. But I just don't think that's gonna happen. And I don't really know what more Brunson can do than he's already doing, and that got him, what, 5th in MVP voting? So I don't really see it. Besides those guys that I mentioned, who else is there even to talk about? I'm sure I missed an obvious one. Let me know in the comments down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. It will mean the world to me. On the road to 10,000 subscribers, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.